Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman. We have a great show planned for you today. But first, the forecast from our intellectualradio.com weather center today. Sunny and warm, high 82 degrees tonight, clear turning humid, low 70 degrees. Tuesday, sunny, then turning cloudy with a 60% chance of thunderstorms in certain spots in areas, high 81 degrees. Tomorrow night, cloudy, warm, humid with a chance of a shower and or thunderstorms. High 70 degrees. Wednesday, rain continues, then it's tapering off. And look at this. The temperatures are going to fall like a rock. High 73 degrees. And tonight we're talking about close to 40s on Wednesday. On Thursday, partly sunny and cooler, high 54 degrees. And on Friday, partly and chilly, high 50 degrees. The Drive at 5 is part of the new Monday night lineup, starting with a new show called Becoming Dateable at 12 p.m. The Great Entrepreneurs at 6 p.m., New Black Leadership at 7 p.m., Dreammakers at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. is Chronicles of Ram, and The Raw Checklist at 10 p.m. Also, the Drive at 5 is also part of the fabulous 5 at 5, only on intellectualradio.com. The Drive at 5 is also sponsored by Joshua Flynn and Associates Insurance Company. Get that insurance. Today, my guest is a community leader as well as a former gubernatorial candidate. He will give us his analysis on the Laquan McDonald verdict. Please give a Drive at 5. Welcome back on the intellectual line to T.O. Hardeman. Welcome back to the Drive, sir.
I'm glad to be here on the line with you on the Drive at 5.
Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station on what does the verdict means for the African American community and the relationship with the Chicago Police Department.
Well, the guilty verdict of Jason Van Dyke being found guilty of second-degree murder actually represents the end of an era in Chicago when it comes down to police brutality and excessive force. For the first time within 50 years, a police officer was found guilty of murdering an African-American male in particular. Over the last 15, 20 years, there have been 10,000 police complaints, and only 1 or 2% of the complaints actually made it to a criminal court. And no officer has been convicted of anything over the last 50 years. So what it says is that everybody came together on this issue to speak truth to power and help make the necessary changes in Chicago when it comes down to policing, especially in communities of color, and in particular the Black community.
Don't you feel ironic when the verdict happened almost identical time frame of the recent death of John Burge? How you feel about that?
Well, like I said, this whole situation represents the end of an era. Everybody knows about the torturous history of former Commander John Burge. He passed away, and Jason Van Dyke was found guilty. Well, you see, you have to understand, and people that are listening must really understand this. You've had a lot of old-time Black politicians in office for over 40 years. Some of them have been in office for 20 years. Some of these pastors have been pastors for over 20, 30 years, and they never once spoke out against police brutality and excessive force in Chicago until the Laquan McDonald case became so big, they had to get involved. I went to some of them pastors personally when I was speaking out against police brutality and excessive force, and my message fell on deaf ears even before the Laquan McDonald case. I want to make that crystal clear to the listeners here. I've been standing up on these type of situations for a long time, but I am not against the police. I'm against excessive force and police brutality. But you had a lot of people that are thinking who have jumped in the forefront of the Laquan McDonald case because they just want to try to stay relevant, and they were nowhere existing when we began the fight in the beginning. Seriously.
Certain activists and community leaders are a little bit upset because they wanted first-degree murder. Why they want first-degree murder instead of second-degree murder? What is the difference in the sentencing there? Why they want first-degree?
Well, number one, it was second-degree murder. I mean, some people may argue that point, but there was no premeditation there. for Jason Van Dyke to kill Laquan McDonald. Now, I've been hearing some rumblings about a police scanner saying that he stated that he would have to shoot this guy when he gets there. Now, that shows premeditation there. But I didn't hear a lot of that come out of the court case during the jury, during the court session. But however, first degree murder, there's no opportunity for no like probation and all that kind of stuff. First degree murder, you gone, period. Second degree murder is probationable, but I don't see Jason Van Dyke receiving any probation for the second degree murder. Those counts, 16 counts of aggravated battery with the firearm. This guy, he's going to be hammered. I mean, he can receive anywhere from, I would say, a range of 10 years to possibly 25 years in prison. I don't see it the same way. No one should be upset. A lot of work went into bringing this case to the courts, and I would like to salute a lot of the brothers. William Calloway, in particular, stood up, spoke truth to power, and carried this case all the way along with a lot of us. It wasn't just Will Calloway. I just want to make that clear. A lot of us were on the front line before anybody got involved, but I do salute the young brother because he had the fortitude to see it all the way through.
Now, there is some back and forth between community leaders who brought the Laquan McDonald case to the forefront and taking a bow for exposing this. Can you give us the details of how the case got exposed to the media?
Well, we had already heard, we had heard that an African-American young man had been killed by the police a little bit over 4 years ago there. And basically we heard about it, close to 4 years anyway. And we heard about it, through the police scanners and everything some years ago. And we heard that the kid was murdered, shot 16 times. But what happened in Capitol Light basically was swept under the rug to a degree. And next thing you know, the rumblings they got a little louder, in other words. And then we began to really look into it. And we found out through the city council that there was a settlement for the McDonald family of $5 million. That propelled Will Calloway to request a FOIA request to have the videotape released. So, we had already been speaking out about it, organizing in the community. You can look my name up many years ago when I took a casket and marching around City Hall, when I marched all up and down Michigan Avenue before Black Friday. We marched and we protested against this particular case with Laquan McDonald being executed, actually. And so I'm just trying to walk you through the process. But Will, along with another journalist, actually requested to have the tape released. And that's what really got the trigger, really got everything moving. The movement, after that, then it became more apparent that this was a straight up murder.
What if the judge, and I'm doing my hypotheticals here, what if the judge will give Van Dyke a lighter sentence? Let's say 2 to 5 years instead of 10 to 20. What would you think will happen in the African American community?
Well, personally, I think that would be a slap in the face for Van Dyke to receive 2 to 5 years. I don't think nothing major is going to happen other than some more peaceful demonstrations and protests and out there in the community as it relates to.
But Tia, let me stop you there. I understand you're saying peaceful, but a lot of people are heated and they're going to be like, okay, we're calmed down now. But if he gets a slap on the wrist to, let's say, 5 years in prison, they're going to want some heads here.
First of all, let me make this clear on the radio here, Intellectual Radio.
We're not promoting violence. I'm just saying, but I'm just putting it out there that people are going to be mad as hell if that happens.
First of all, some of these communities, so-called community activists, are working with both sides anyway. They're working with the administration and they're working in the community. Some of them are receiving funds to keep the peace in the community and all that kind of stuff. That's something nobody wants to talk about. That's the elephant in the room. I'm the kind of guy that I expose things that throughout my career. That's what I do. I'm outspoken and I speak truth to power no matter who it is, okay? First of all, you got too many people working both ends. Agent provocateurs all over the place. And you've had more white people stand up for Laquan McDonald than you've had black people in actuality. If you look at all the marches downtown, we had quite a few African American people that finally got involved in the movement. Then you had a lot of white people out there. So the reality is that everybody is in a peaceful mode, train of thought in their mind. So I don't see nothing erupting no time. And even if Jason Van Dyke was to receive 2 to 5 years, I think we would definitely organize around that issue, though. And I don't think the judge is going to play with Jason Van Dyke. One of the worst things Jason Van Dyke did is he took the stand and he began to talk. And he said he was shooting at the knife. He just wanted to he didn't want to see the knife anymore. But he couldn't explain why he shot Laquan McDonald 16 times. And it was overkill. You had a massive cover-up with his colleagues who actually signed up on paperwork like Laquan McDonald was like confronting or walking up on Jason Van Dyke. It was all just wrong information. So this guy's going to be gone for 10 years or better, in my opinion.
You mentioned earlier black elected officials they're now speaking up on the Laquan McDonald case. However, they've been silent all this time. What would you like for the black elected officials to do to prevent something like this from ever happening again?
Well, first of all, I have to give the credit to myself. I'll praise to God and all the young people that stood up and stood up on the front line. Jedediah Brown, Jamal Green, William Calloway, Sister Angel Dickerson, Eric Russell, Bishop Greg Greer, Pastor Pewley. Now the list goes on. Ira Ackley was even out there. Pastor Hatch, Greg Livingston. I'm not going to mention everybody, Africa Porter. But the thing is this: I don't expect the black elected officials to do anything. They've never done nothing in this category of excessive force and police brutality. They rode the wave. There would not be a Kimberly Fox if it wasn't for Laquan McDonald. She wouldn't be the Cook County State's attorney if Laquan McDonald never happened. She was able to ride the wave. I respect Kim Fox. Don't get me wrong. I know her personally. She's an excellent, very effective young lady in her career. There's nothing against her, but she would not be in that office if it was not for Laquan McDonald happening. And let me say this also. I've been around in the city organizing for progressive change for over 20 years, and I've sat in some of them police board meetings when you've had some of these household name pastors sitting there when the police have killed somebody, and the pastors never once spoke up. When they speak up, they stutter and all that kind of stuff. I mean, seriously, I'm just going deep with you here. A lot of the black politicians, once again, never spoke up. So they can stop pump faking and playing games. With a lot of the black politicians been in office for a long time, what they're doing is they're just trying to just stay in their comfort zone. Yeah, it's okay to speak up now because all the work was done already. So you come up all of a sudden talking about what you're going to do for criminal justice reform, and you have done nothing. We've had over 10,000 police cases, complaints. 2% went to court. And I'm saying it's live on the Driving Five with my man Roman today on Intellectual Radio.
So, in essence, you're saying the black politicians all around have felt us, period.
You have to understand, when I ran for governor, I ran pretty much against the machine. The Democratic machine has always served the black community what we've been receiving, and that is nothing. What happens is that the Democrats in charge, they end up hiring a few people from the black community, relatives of some of the other politicians, but the community as ours continues to lose. Like in Chicago, you have over 485 murders so far this year, over 1,800 shootings. Every year in Chicago, we experience the same levels of gun violence, and everybody keeps having these town hall meetings. Everybody's having these little sessions with the politicians. The politicians don't know what to do. They don't know what to do to stop gun violence in their own community. We have to stop playing games. I have a relationship with a lot of the politicians. Don't get me wrong. They're personal friends of mine, but I have to speak the truth here. There's one politician, State Rep. Sean Ford, that has his eye on the prize. He's pretty much close to the situation, and he's done a tremendous amount of work out there. A lot of politicians have done a lot with policy, legislation, and all that stuff, but they have done nothing to change the conditions on the west side of Chicago. They have done nothing to change the conditions on the south and east side of Chicago. I was out on 79th and Damon, and I drove from 79th and Damon to 79th and Yates, and I counted over 1,000 abandoned storefronts. abandoned storefronts. Look at what's happening on Madison and Pulaski. Look at what's happening in South Austin. Take a look at 16th and Lawndale. These black elected officials have done nothing to bring economic development to their community. And we still have a tale of two cities in Chicago, because if you go down 39th Street, then you go to Wrigleyville around Belmont, in the Clark or whatever, Belmont and Halstead or whatever the case may be. All those citizens are doing quite well up there. And we keep singing the same song. You're trying to vote a lot of these politicians out of office and change the narrative in Illinois and in Chicago.
Back to the Van Dyke situation here. Here's a question that's been on my mind and on people on Facebook's mind. And I'm going to ask this question because someone brought this to my attention, so I'm going to ask it. Why Chicago Police Department or Eddie Johnson have not announced that Van Dyke is officially fired from the police department? Why that is not? He's in jail. He's in Cook County Jail right now. You've been convicted. Why he's not fired yet?
Well, the only answer I have for that question there would be that you have to talk to Eddie Johnson. I can't really tell you because I don't know what's in the mind of Eddie Johnson. I think that I really don't have an answer to that question. But you're right. If they should be able to speak on that, they should definitely be fired. Not these convictions, but that is crazy. But you have to understand, this is what you call the norm with cases of police, excessive force and police brutality. The police officer, they end up on being suspended for a while, and then depending on the outcome of what happens, then they fire the officer. All right, so that's only response I have for that, young man.
And also, should his pension be taken away? Because really, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm talking too fast. Let me slow down. Go ahead and ask the question. Yeah.
You know, there's one thing when you fire a police officer, nothing happens to their pension.
Okay.
So basically, if he's been fired, should his pension be taken away?
I don't think the man's pension. I think the pension, the wife and the daughter need his pension. Because I feel for his wife and his daughters. I'm not going to put them in a category with Jason Van Dyke. We have to look out for the family. I know some people may not like what I'm saying, but I believe his pension should go to his wife so she can take care of those kids. It's rough. It's really rough. If Jason Van Dyke really cared about his family, he would not have shot and killed Laquan McDonald because he has daughters himself. And the reality is that I don't think the family should be punished or penalized financially because of the actions of Jason Van Dyke. So yes, I believe his pension should go to his wife, down the road.
Now, there's another question that haven't been asked. Do you think it was racially motivated?
There is no doubt in my mind that when Jason Van Dyke arrived on the location, on the scene, he saw a black man. I would like to use the other word, but I'm not going to use it. He saw a black young man running away, skipping away, and he said in the back of his head, I'm going to blow this boy away. That's what went through his mind, because if Laquan was any other race, other than a black man, they would have de-escalated the situation. If Laquan McDonald was a white man skipping away with a knife in his hand, a far distance from he didn't present any danger to no officer, and you had other officers testify to the fact that Laquan McDonald was not a danger to nobody. Therefore, if he was white, he would not have been shot. He would have been tased, or they would have tried to negotiate with him to put the knife down. And if they would have asked Laquan to put the knife down, he probably would have did the same thing. Now, there's a chance that if Laquan was a Hispanic guy, he may have shot him too, but I don't think he would have been shot 16 times. Laquan was killed for being a black man, skipping down the street with a knife in his hand, and he posed no imminent threat of danger to nobody.
I got a couple more questions. Thank you for spending time with us. I know you're a very busy man. Here's my question. The Los Angeles police were faced with the same situation. When you look at Laquan McDonald, the image in my head kind of reminds me of Rodney King.
Okay.
And LA had to redesign itself, the LAPD, because they were very ruthless over there in shooting African Americans and just roughhousing them. Should we adopt a legislation if a police is not sure? They have a beanbag, like you shoot a beanbag at them to take them down. That's the only thing you need to do is to take them down if you're not sure. Do you think if an officer, they saying tasers is not the answer here? I'm thinking like a beanbag. What is your approach? Because the LAPD does that. So they're like, we're not for sure he's running around, he's not complying. We need to get him, so we'll just shoot him with a beanbag and then see what's up.
Well, personally, I'm in favor of any type of non-lethal force. There should not be the use of lethal force unless there's really a situation that determines that there's no other choice. But you have to put yourself in the shoes of police officers as well, because I know we come down on the police a lot. Sometimes decisions are made at the spur of the moment. The police should be, especially if you're seasoned, if you've been trained, you have to kind of like use some real strong discretion before using lethal force anyway. Now, you had the guy, Augustus, the young man that was killed on 71st Street, Augustus Tarim, I think that was his last name. He was shot and killed, and that situation should have been de-escalated without a doubt. And it just doesn't make no sense. For those who are listening, this young man had a firearm on him in a holster, and the police knows he had a firearm. He was trying to show him his firearm card, even though he did not have a permit to conceal carry. But it was situations that could have been de-escalated without a doubt. So you have to understand is that the police have in LA with Rodney King. See, the police culture was the police have never been convicted anyway. So they felt they could beat Rodney King up and nothing was going to happen. And when they went to court, nothing happened. You had riots afterwards, yes, but that didn't really help out any. You had a lot of innocent people hurt, stores burned down in your own community. A lot of people were killed. So the riots, see, violence does not pay off. Don't say violence is more violence. Dr. King said that. So, it's all about taking the higher road if you can. But there will come a time when you have to stand your ground too. I understand that. But the Ron McDonald case was more severe than the Rodney King case. But the police, they've been getting away with killing African American men with impunity for the last 100 years or better. And before the police were killing us, the Ku Klux Klan was killing African American men. All right, so the list goes on and on. And there's a preponderance of evidence from it, throughout the universe that dictates what I'm talking about is very true. It's very correct.
Now, my question is the mayoral race. There is a strong rumor brewing. That doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate, but I want to know your analysis on this. That the lame duck mayor, Rahm Emanuel, might consider throwing his hat back into the mayor's race since the verdict is guilty. What are your thoughts about that rumor escalating?
I don't think that Mayor Rahm Emanuel is going to run mayor to throw his hat back in the race. I don't see that. Mayor Rahm Emanuel has been around for a little while now. I don't see him going back and forth, having an ambivalent mind like that or nothing like. I don't see that. I won't even give that a lot of thought. I just don't see it happening. I'll say this much about the mayor's race, if you don't mind, though.
No, go ahead.
When I ran for governor, a lot of people say I didn't have no money, this and that. Now, Willie Wilson has money. He's running for mayor of Chicago. The people need to rally around Dr. Willie Wilson. He's a black man, well-learned black man, successful businessman. He helps a lot of people in the community. I mean, really steps up in a lot of ways, helping African-American people, white people, Hispanic people. Why not support Dr. Willie Wilson? What's the excuse now? Willie has money. So what is everybody's excuse about Willie Wilson?
You are listening to the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. On the intellectual line is former gubernatorial candidate T.O. Hardeman and community leader. Now, please let us know how can someone get in contact with you and follow you. Let them know.
Yeah, my website is violenceinterrupters.org. Let me say it one more time. Violenceinterrupters.org. You can find me on Twitter at T.O. Hardiman, on Twitter, Facebook, T.O. Hardiman, on LinkedIn, T.O. Hardiman as well. And I want to thank you, Roman, for having such a great show. I listen to the Driving Five most time when I'm around driving right around the 5 o'clock hour. And I love your very thought-provoking show. You bring up very relevant issues to the forefront of the intellectual radio audience. And I want you to keep up the good work. My man Earl Winfrey there doing a good job of, overseeing intellectual radio. All right.
All right. And Wanda is too.
That's right. Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And this time we're going to have you in the driver's seat, okay?
Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you so much. When we come back on the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station, more on the analysis on the Laquan McDonald verdict with presumptive mayoral candidate Jamal Green on the intellectual line when we come back on the Drive at 5. Oh, am I doing? Yes, hi, this is Roman from IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. You guys ready?
I am.
Okay. I'm going to run over just if you see somebody, just give me a second. Jamal, you there? Hello? Oh, I'm still on hold?
Yeah, and it was bad
Yes. Hi. How you doing, brother? I can barely hear you. Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right.
I'm doing fine. Give me 1 minute and we'll go right to you, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2.
And we're back on the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. Now we have more on the analysis of Laquan McDonald verdict. On the intellectual line is presumptive mayoral candidate Jamal Green, who was on the front lines throughout the case, fighting for transparency from the Chicago Police Department as well as the mayor's office. Welcome back to the Drive, Jamal.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Now, please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station your thoughts on the verdict. You were on several local and national media outlets giving your response immediately, and your reaction was like emotional. Could you explain that?
Yeah. Well, I don't think you can use put words together to explain it. I mean, when you got over, the last few years, what we sacrificed, sacrificed our lives, sacrificed time with our families. A lot of people sacrifice finances and jobs and hitting the streets and going toe to toe with
the political establishment with police and get injuries in the process and being arrested. And I was a political prisoner with 9 felony charges that I had to beat, and so many other different, dozens and dozens of protesters went through different court cases, all to fight for McDonald's. And so when you put that, you can't even put that in perspective of how we feel to get some sense of victory, some sense of justice, some sense of our work and our sacrifices are not in vain. You look at Sandra Bland and you look at the Michael Browns, and you can go all the way down the line, and that's right, and you see that officers are not being convicted, and then their families are not getting justice, and we did. That just says a lot to us, and so it's an emotional moment for us, for all the activists, and really brought us together and made our bond really stronger.
What does it mean for the African American community as a whole?
Well, what it means is, we're going to see a different police department. Especially, and I would definitely say in Chicago, but even around the country, I think this is a wake-up call. For police officers to understand that you can't be the judge, jury, and execution on the streets. You can't use people as target practice and keep using that same fear-like tactic. At the end of the day, officers are now going to think twice about shooting someone because they don't want to be the next news story. They don't want to be the next person that gives up the rest of their life. You got to look at Jason Van Dyke. He is now a convicted felon. Right? He's a convicted felon. He's going to do some some time in prison. And that X is always going to be on his back forever, whether he's going to rest his life in jail or whether he gets out at some time. He will never be the same. Who wants to go through that life? Be a police officer that serves the community and not serves the badge in the cold blue.
I asked this question to T.O. Hardeman. I'll ask you this same question. Since the verdict, why Van Dyke has not been officially fired from the Chicago Police Department, and should he keep his pension?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that what we have is, in this system, I think is really garbage, from the police board to COPA and the superintendent of police. So the superintendent of police, doesn't fully have that power, and he has direct advantage to the police board and things of that sort. So I do believe, and I thought that he would be able to get that power once they are finally convicted. He needs to be fired immediately. I believe the superintendent has recommended that. That needs to be, fast in motion. I don't believe he should keep his pension, but he will be able to fight against that because, maybe they'll use the fact that he wasn't found guilty of serial misconduct, but I don't believe he should keep his pension. And I believe he should be fired immediately. They just need to fast track it. We're going to put pressure on him to do something.
Your opponent, Gary McCarthy, said in a CBS interview in 2015, and I quote, he viewed the dash cam video of the fatal shooting within a couple of days of McDonald's death.
Yep.
He said it. Go ahead, sir.
No, I'm saying he viewed it next day, I believe. Yep.
He said, and I quote, it's obvious a terrible video, obviously a terrible tragedy. When I've learned the circumstances of Mr. McDonald's life, that he was a ward of the state at the time, and the troubles that he has had growing up, I thought that the whole thing was a tragedy. End quote. McCarthy said also, and I quote, I knew that it was problematic from the officer because it's going to be hard to articulate why, meaning Van Dyke, fired so many rounds. He also said to this currently, McCarthy said to the Chicago Sun-Times, he did not have the authority to fire Van Dyke, describing Chicago Police Department as, quote, a dysfunctional structure that still exists and it's up to City Hall. He can only place him on desk duty. He is currently on desk duty as of now while he's on Cook County Jail. What is your thoughts on that statement?
Well, you know what? Gary McCarthy is right on some things. He is right with the superintendent of police doesn't have much power, and a lot of that power has been delegated to the police board, to COPA first, and then a police board when it comes to firing. So he is correct on that. But let me be clear on this. Gary McCarthy, when he knew about that video and he took it to Rob, he was silent. He was loyal to Robert Manuel. He allowed them to cover this up for Ron to get reelected. And there were so many other officers who filed reports that were on the scene that were false and that were in favor of Van Dyke, that he neglected to discipline, neglected to strip them of their badges or make them do that to use his power at the time. So Gary McCarthy is even complicit. He didn't know that it was going to sprout up so big and for a lot of control and inspire a lot of control. At the end of the day, if this situation did not get as big as it did, he would still be the superintendent of police today, and he would still be at Ronald Manuel's side. And so we can't have people in these positions who are just playing these loyalty cards, even when it's wrong. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And we need people that sit in the superintendent position or to the mayor's position to take those stances regardless of their friendships. So that's what I got to say against that.
Why City Hall is not reacting to this? You have some Black elected officials basically talking about it now. Why you think Black elected officials have not acted legislatively on police shootings in Chicago?
Because the Black elected officials are rubber stamped around, and so they are directed fully by the mayor. There's no independence there. What's the point of having a caucus? You might as well not have a caucus because all of them still follow after Robert Manuel. They don't have a caucus that has a plan to move forward ordinances and legislation or what like that. Their caucus is laughable and it's ridiculous. At the end of the day, the aldermen just sit around and wait on the mayor to tell them what to do. And the mayor puts money in their coffin so they can continue to be. The mayor puts money in their coffin to get out the vote for him. And they just sit around and vote how he wants them to vote over 95% of the time. How do you have a Black caucus who's supposed to be independent vote for a mayor over 95% with the mayor over 95% of the time? There's no independence there. So I think come this next election, we need a whole new regime change, and we need to elect a whole new set of aldermen. Really, I would love to see over 25, 30 new aldermen, and definitely 90% at least in the Black caucus would be amazing to see.
Pastor Hunter wants a state or city law regarding the Fraternal Order of Police not having control on crime scenes and investigation in police shootings. What are your thoughts on that? You were here on the Drive at 5 before. We talked about that issue. He said it publicly. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely, but that's such a large fight. I think the problem is the FOP has too much power. It's ridiculous.
But how can you decrease that power, sir?
Well, you have negotiations when it comes to the contract. And you gotta have balls when it comes to that, as well as just what Pastor Hunter said, who I work closely with, in regards to this case. They shouldn't be in control over the scenes, and it's a lot of different contract pieces that they put in, and we should be fighting them on, right? When you're talking about officer, once they shoot someone, and the time that from when they shoot someone, then when they give their report on what happened. Those are the type of things that are in the contract that we have to negotiate. No, they shouldn't have 2 days. No, they shouldn't be able to go and talk to their supervisors and look at videos before they put their statement on what happened. They need to be putting their statement on what happened immediately after the shoot. But that is all in the FOP contract. So people understand, and it's a hard negotiation. But you got to have a mayor, the city council with laws to stand up to FOP. That's what you don't have, is because, the mayor is scared to piss off the police department. And the FOP is putting money into this candidate or into this initiative or into these lobbyists. So we got to find a way around that and find some make sure that the people have more power than the FOB does. And that's not the situation that it is.
Do you think the verdict will prevent the police from doing their job?
No.
Because senior citizens have a difference of opinion, wanting to see more officers on the street.
So, wait, say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Do you think the verdict will prevent the police from doing their job? Because senior citizens have a difference of opinion, wanting to see more officers on the street instead of less.
Oh. Well, you know what? It's just that I believe that there's so many problems that we haven't dealt with that, no one, really understands how things can be fixed. No, we can't fix the problem with more police officers on the street. We have to make sure we put money into preventative causes, as well as, and when we talk about officers not doing their job, especially after the verdict, police officers don't solve crime. Okay, so we can't sit here and expect them to say, oh, I'm gonna sit back and the violence numbers are gonna go up. At the end of the day, we got to do our jobs as leadership to make sure that we have equity in these communities when it comes to economic development, when it comes to education, when it comes to mental health, create jobs in these communities, opportunities, programs for those who are reentering into society from jail or prison. We got to make sure that we are actually put money in preventative causes instead of the police department. We spend $4 million on police, $100 million a year on police misconduct. They got an $8 million forfeiture fund that they control. It's so much money that goes towards the police department in the city, and the clearance rate is at 15.4%. So if you're telling me that the officers are not going to do a job because of this, I'll tell you that they haven't been doing their jobs, and the detective division hasn't been good, which needs to be double. We need to double the number of detective division. But our clearance rate is 15.4%. What worse can you do?
You are listening to IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station. On the intellectual line is presumptive mayoral candidate Jamal Green. Our discussion is Laquan McDonald analysis on the verdict of Jason Van Dyke. So please give us your the listening audience where they can get in contact with you, your information, so forth and so on.
So they can go to our website at greenforchicago.com, or chicago.com, or look up Jamal Green, J-A-M-A-L, Green as a color. You'll be able to find me very easily on any social media site, or you can do a Google search.
Okay, repeat that one more time.
Jamal Green, J-A-M-A-L, Green as a color, or go to our website, greenforchicago.com. Greenforchicago.com. Give us a call at 312-725-0350.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate this, my man.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you. When we come back on the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station, President of Guinea Community Association of Illinois and Iowa, Omar Telly Delalo, will join us after this when we come back. And we're back on the Drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station, sponsored by Joshua Flynn and Associates Insurance. Guinea is celebrating their 60th independence anniversary, and they will have a celebration at the Delhi Center and other places around Chicago. Here to explain more live in the flesh about this for about time. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome back to President of the Guinean Community Association of Illinois and Iowa, Omar Telly Diallo.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome back to the Drive.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now step up to the mic, man. Okay. Please give Intellectual Radio slash iHeart radio station an update since the last time
Absolutely.
you were here.
Yes, sir. Sure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having the Guinean Community Associations of Illinois and Iowa. As you know, we are a non-for-profit. We're a non-for-profit organizations based here in Chicago. So we help Guineans in the state of Illinois and both in Iowa. We are 501c3 organizations, and as you mentioned earlier in your introduction, we are celebrating our 60th independence. We had on October 2nd, which was actually the day of the independence, we had a celebration dinner at Yassa, like one of the African restaurants that we've talked about. It was a very nice turnout. And on the 10th, which is this coming Wednesday, we are raising our flag. I mean, the independence continue, the celebrations continue. Guineans around the United States have celebrated their independence. We've seen celebrations of independence in New York. I mean, shout out to the New York people. We have seen celebrations in pretty much all over the US and Canada as well. So, of course, in Guinea, I mean, it was a big thing because it's the 60th anniversary of our independence. Now, just to give you a little bit overview about Guinea, I mean, I guess this is the second time that I've talked about it in my first time on the show. We were a French colony, and in October 2nd, 1958, that's when we became independent. But before we became independent, on September 28, 1958, that's when Guinea had said no to France. And as a result of that, we become independent. We were the first French African colony to become independent in 1958.
Now, explain the Guinea culture to us. You said you will bring a dish. Now I'm mad.
We'll do a special show because, like, as you could see, I just came from work.
Mhm.
It's a good thing that, I work in Oak Brook. So we'll do a special show where we could showcase Guinean culture, and then we'll bring the dish for the Intellectual Radio crew. I promise you we'll do that. Definitely.
But explain the culture.
Well, we have so many cultures in Guinea. We have four different natural regions. We have Upper Guinea, Lower Guinea, and then we have Middle Guinea and Guinea, Forest Guinea, which is the Lower Guinea as well. So we have different culture. You have the Susu, you have the Mandingo, you have the Fulani, um, and there are over what 25 or 28 spoken languages. So like each pretty much like ethnic group have their different culture, but there is one basic culture that everyone goes by. We have pretty much, I would say, 80 percent. I would say 80-90% of the Guinea are Muslims, and the rest of the are Christians. So the Fulani have their own culture. The Mandingo has their own culture as well. And then you have to Susu. You have like so many different cultures. I mean,
But you also speak French.
yes.
So explain that. You have Muslim, you have people speak Muslim,
Uh-huh.
you have people speaking African in there and also other languages,
Right.
but you also have French. Can you explain that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what I was saying earlier. Like most African countries either speak French, English, Portuguese, and probably a lot of people don't know that only one country speaks Spanish in Africa, which is Equatorial Guinea. Now, Africa were either colonized by the French or the British. Now, as I was saying earlier in my introduction, Guinea was the first French African to become independent. Now, during the 50s, like most African countries got their independence in the 60s. Now, Ghana became independent in 1957. Guinea became independent in 1958. Now, like in towards 1957, in that era, like all France and England like started going to all over their colonies around the world, and then asking if they still want to be part of France or part of England, which is part of their colony. So it's as a result of that, because a lot of African countries says yes, they want to be part of the colony, but Guinea was the only country in 1958 to say no, we don't want to be part of the colony. And then as a result of that, we become independent on October 2nd. And then after that, you had the wave of independence coming to Africa. So that's how all these African countries in the 60s, after Ghana and Guinea in the 60s, started becoming independent. So like all the neighboring countries in Africa became independent. So basically that's what explains the French. Now, you have official languages in Africa: French, of course, English, and I think 5 different countries speak Portuguese as well. And then, as I said earlier, one Spanish, which is Equatorial Guinea.
Now, the Guinean flag have importance
Yes.
to it. Your culture and it showcase honor in raising the flag.
Right.
Can you explain that to us, the meaning of your flag? Because it's a special, you're celebrating 60 years
Right.
and you have a special ceremony on raising the Guinea flag.
Mhm.
Explain that to us.
Yeah, the red means like the blood that was shed while fighting for independence, and yellow means the gold the country could offer, and then green is the visitations. You know how green Guinea is, so pretty much that explains what the flag is. As you could see, most African countries have either red, yellow, or green, yellow, or red. Now, the reason why we're celebrating our independence, we were pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, as I was told, we were the first African country to raise the flag at the Delhi Center. I mean, it was very nice. It was very meaningful because, like, as you could see, the mayor, like, the city of Chicago has put together event where countries could raise their flag. So. As a president of the community, one of the innovations that I've done, is to be aware of what's going on around the city and how, as African, we could get involved, within the community here in Chicago, because we live here in Chicago. So it's really meaningful, and as any other country, we decided that we wanted to raise our flag. I mean, many countries have been doing it for a while now. This is our going to be our second annual flag raising at the Delhi Center. We will have guest speakers. We will also have we'll have guest speakers. We will have performers, as we did on the dinner, and we will have different surprises.
Okay, where they can get the tickets and get in contact with you.
Well, it's a free event.
Okay.
Everybody is welcome. It's free. It's at the Delhi Center. It's from 12 to 1. And for those who want to get a hold of me, they could call me at 773-552-7106, or the website of our community. It's info@gcaii.org, or they could get in contact with Ansu. Ansu is our secretary in charge of communications and information.
Okay, thank you so much. Don't be a stranger. Come back on the drive. That's going to do it for us on the drive at 5. Thanks to Wanda, who's behind the scenes, or Winfrey, our executive producer. You guys have a lovely week.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Rowan. Thank you. Bye, Facebook.